So everything that St. James Academy does opens in prayer. It's the center and the heart of our program. And even though we're not at school, we are in my basement and you are in yours. We'll go ahead and open in prayer as well. This is the prayer that we actually begin our class with every day, our debate class. If you want to, you can join along in your hearts. Your microphones are off, so I'll never know if you're shouting it out or just politely putting up with it. But I'm going to begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O Lord, grant us that love which can never die, which will enkindle our lamps but not extinguish them, so that they may shine in us and bring light to others. Most dear Savior, enkindle our lamps, that they may shine forever in your temple. May we receive unquenchable light from you, so that our darkness will be illuminated, and the darkness of the world will be made less. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. That's a prayer attributed to St. Columba of Iona, who is one of the patron saints of poets. He's also the patron saint of the St. James Academy Speech and Debate team. As a person that cares an awful lot about words, we feel like we connect with him pretty well. All right, first thing I want to say before we get started is that I want to thank you for volunteering to judge. I think it's terrific. You know, academic debate as an activity began in the United States a couple of decades before the Civil War. The modern version that begins to look like what our students practice today emerged about 100 years ago. And today, well, Saturday, but today you take your place in a long line of academic debate, and we appreciate it. You make the game possible, and we absolutely couldn't do it without you. I found over the years that most people are actually pretty nervous if they've never judged a high school debate before, if they don't have any debate background. A lot of times people feel like incredibly ill-qualified to do it. And I want to say the first is you're probably going to do fine. You can relax. And I say probably because I don't know, I can't predict the future, but I like our odds. I bet nobody's going to die on Saturday because of a judging decision. Debaters actually will learn over the course of their debate career how to recognize and how to habituate themselves to all types of judges, from veterans of the game who've been doing it for 40 years, and for people that, you know, sometimes they tournaments get stuck for judges and they grab some bus drivers out of the hospitality lounge, people that have absolutely no connection to the game at all. And debaters over time kind of learn the range of that. And it's actually one of the great pieces of this activity is that it teaches communication, and that you don't have to have any particular debate background, and the debater should reach the audience where he or she is. Our tournament is also a novice tournament and a JV tournament. So they're people in their first or maybe second year of competition. In another sense, they are learning the game right alongside you. So approach it as a learning opportunity for both of you. And I would say that certainly in Kansas and bigger picture nationwide, this whole activity is recovering from the time of COVID. There was a couple of years where it was Zoom debate. It was a nice way to hold the pieces together. It was kind of joyless, and a lot of people left the activity. So honestly, we're rebuilding the activity, which means that we are all kind of learning it together. There are so many people that are new to the game as our game carries on, and we're right alongside you. So I think it's awesome. I want to talk about what it is to make a good debate judge. You know, like you think in sports all the time, people are yelling at the refs. They're going off about, you know, everything that the referees could do. But debate judges aren't like that. Actually, the rules specifically prohibit anybody from talking to you or confronting you about anything. But what makes a really good judge is not necessarily extensive background in debate, but it's a person that's willing to be fair-minded and a person that's willing to be honest. In debate, you have two opposing sides on a matter of public policy, and it's important that you don't drag in your own feelings on the topic. You just let the debate play out as it happens there. You are judging the round, not the big picture of debate. Now, we do have a complicated debate topic this year, probably there's not a lot of people that have like hard and fast feelings on whether or not NATO should, you know, the United States should cooperate more with NATO on security policy. Maybe you do have a strong opinion on it. That's awesome if you have a background. It's totally okay if you're vaguely aware that NATO is a thing. The debater should bring you along and get you all those details that you need in there, because the debaters are there to reach you. You are the target audience as the judge of the debate round. I would suggest that you take notes in a round. Bring a notepad and paper and, you know, a couple of pens with you to take notes as well as you can. There may be a lot of information. Over time, debaters learn a specific type of note-taking called a flow. And I've given you an example of this picture on the screen where there's like different columns, the different speeches do things and they react to each other. If this is your first time debating, you're welcome to try it. Flowing is one of those things that you will develop over a few years. If you've got a young person in the event this year and you think you're going to be judging for a couple of years, ask them how to flow. Some of kind of the debate supplies, which you'll usually see judges roll into a round with, is some paper and a pen or two. Totally acceptable to bring a bottle of water or a cup of coffee. We will have some coffee going down in the space outside of our St. James Academy Chapel. But most importantly, bring a disposition towards growth, something that you're willing to go try out some new stuff. Overall, how is the game played? Let me give you the short 4-minute version of what high school debate looks like. A debate team is made up of 2 high schoolers. So a team is 2 kids from the same school who will compete together as a team against 2 other kids from their same school. They're going to walk into a classroom. If it's been a while since you've been in a high school classroom, you're going to see it on Saturday. How exciting. They're going to move the desks sort of close to each other. They kind of set up a little team spot next to each other. And then teams will alternate back and forth with timed speeches, either affirming a resolution or negating a resolution. So one side will be in favor of one particular sentence. And if you are looking at that Google Doc that I had sent to you on the email that I gave you actually the link for this webinar, it is right at the top of the second page. Our resolution, our debate topic for this year is resolved that the United States federal government should substantially increase its security cooperation with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and cybersecurity. It's a total mouthful. It's absolute word soup. The debaters have been sorting out how to approach this topic. You're going to see, okay, so our tournament is actually only the 2nd week of the year, and you've got people that might be coming out for their first debate tournament. They're going to be learning the resolution right along with you, but one team will be in favor of this sentence and one team will be against this sentence. There's different kinds of speeches, constructives, cross-examinations, and rebuttals. I'll talk more about those in a minute. And then the teams rotate positions. If they are for the resolution in one round, round 2, they're probably going to be against the resolution. They will flip back and forth, and teams learn every side of a complicated issue. It's a pretty cool activity for it. Let's talk now about what your expectations are. So if I am on that packet, we're looking at the second page again, and it starts, one of the pieces are, what are the judge expectations before the round starts? So before the round starts, I'm going to ask you to come and check in at a check-in table right inside St. James Academy. So when you pull up to our school, park in any parking spot you want, walk up to the front doors of the building. Those are the ones in the circle drive. You come in the front doors, and there's going to be a couple of kids sitting at a folding table just inside the door. There'll be a sign over their head or somewhere around them that says check in. And that's where you're going to come check in about 15 minutes before your round begins. You will have your ballots there. If you're going to be judging in the round, you'll have a ballot. It's exactly the one that looks like it on your screen right now. And you'll get your ballot. Now, please only take your ballot. If you see somebody that's like, oh, I know where Bethany is, and I'm going to go take this ballot to her. Actually, please let Bethany come get it from our table. I know you're trying to help her out, but there's actually not somebody named Bethany. I didn't look at the list real well, but we're trying to make sure that way we know we have seen every judge for every round. Some rounds may be paneled. I don't know how often that's going to happen, but there might be 3 judges in the room, but very typically there's only going to be 1 judge in the room. And there will be some judge instructions available, which, like I said, is that Google Doc that I had sent out to you. I'll have printout paper copies for you on Saturday at the judges table there. Now, we different rounds have different levels of judges. We were able to place a whole lot of people in, for instance, round 1, but by the time round 5 comes along, it's a little slimmer. Our game needs to have some standby judges, so there's not a pretty good chance. There is some chance that you might be listed as a standby judge, which means that we need you to hang around at least through we know a successful start to whatever round you're going to. It's not super often, but it's not uncommon that Bethany just doesn't show up, or that she gets confused, or her round ran super long and she can't start the next one. So we go to our standby pool for that. There's a few judges in every round that are listed by standby. It may be you, it may not. If you are on standby and it's your last round of the day and we don't need you, then maybe you can kind of peace out and go get a cup of coffee on the road. But the student that recruited you will still get credited as part of their course requirements that they asked you to come judge for us. There is a hospitality room at our school. On the packet, I'm not sure if I listed it correctly. I said it's in the media center. It's actually right outside our chapel. There's kind of a semi-enclosed space that will be, and that'll have some tables and chairs and coffee and some snacks. You're welcome to hang out there between rounds, or if you're on a standby judge for that. Your debate ballot is what it looks like here in the picture. And actually that'll take us to our next topic, is what is at the beginning of the round. So I've asked you to check in 15 minutes before the round starts, and then head up to your classrooms. All of our debates will be happening in our main academic wing of the building. We have other classrooms in various places around St. James Academy. We're going to be in the main classroom wing for the whole day. And I need you to go to the room that you're assigned to a couple of minutes early. The debaters are actually asked not to enter the room until you get there. They would like to go set up their camp. So I need you a few minutes early to head to the room. And then as soon as you got both teams and they're ready to go, you don't need me to start your round. The kids are ready to go. Go get yourself ready to go. You can go begin when everybody's ready. The teams will will put their names on the ballot. Now this is, people in their first year of the game, so they're trying to figure out what they can and can't do. You might ask them, hey, will you come up and sign in on the ballot? Put your name on the first affirmative spot. They might know to do that. You might give them a little clue to it, but the kids will come up to put their name on the ballot. You're going to confirm, okay, you're the affirmative team and your name is Marco, and you're the negative team and you are Roger, or whatever the names are. Some teams will try to shake your hands. This is always weird. I hate shaking. I work with adolescents and I hate touching them, but if you want to shake their hand, that's fine. Some of them will try to. And some teams might ask you for your paradigm. I don't know that we're going to see that a lot just based on our start of the year, but paradigm is basically like how you intend to judge. Your answer for that might be, this is my first time judging, and the kids will know that you are what we call a lay judge, which isn't an insult. It just means that they're going to have to use a mode of communication for people that have never played the game, which, as I said before, is awesome. That's actually what because debate is a communication activity, we want people to adapt to their audience wherever they are. So that's kind of as the round begins. Once the round gets started, once we're actually during the round, please listen to the arguments. Please take notes as necessary. It is absolutely great to bring a pad of paper and some, a pen and kind of make some notes for it. As I mentioned earlier, over time, debaters learn a specific type of note taking called a flow, which is what you see in the picture on your screen here, where there's different columns representing the different speeches. Don't complicate this for yourself. You can just write in, Timmy said whatever, Marco said whatever. I do want you to start filling out your ballot during the round while things are going on. Comments that you want to leave for the students, and I'll talk about what those might be in a moment. Please don't wait for the end. We actually have a kind of a tight turnaround. So if you make all of your notes and you try to transfer them all to the debates, which are to the debate ballots, which are like triplicate carbon paper. It's actually really funny. High school kids have never seen carbon paper, so they don't know how it works anymore. So they're like, oh, this is like magic. So, but if you spend your time filling out your carbon papers after the debate round is over, we're going to need to start the next debate round. So just, keep it going, keep a running comment on it. Things that I'm going to ask you not to do. Please do not keep time in rounds. The kids will all have their own, cell phones. They're going to keep their own time for speeches. It's actually a rule of the Kansas State High School Activities Association that the judge should not be a timekeeper. And it's kind of an odd rule, and coaches, we've complained about it for years, but Keisha says, you are not a referee, you are a judge, you should not keep time. So that's a rule, please don't do it. Also, please don't interrupt a round. If a kid is going on and talking and you want to ask them a question, please don't ask them a question. Let the communication play out for it. If you are absolutely confused about the round, trust me, I know where you're coming from. I have watched hundreds of debates over the years, and there's so many times I finish a round and say, I don't actually know what just happened there. You got to make your best judgment on it. Please do not interrupt a round unless it's an emergency. Otherwise, just kind of let it play out in real time. They are timed speeches, so the kids are kind of held to a standard, and we got to allow them to have their time to go play. If there are other judges in the room, please do not confer with other judges in the room. Just, you are each your own island, and you make your own decision for it. Lastly, or a couple things I'm going to say, please do not reveal your decision to debaters or to anybody else. You can't walk out and say, boy, negative team, you sure clobbered them. Or I'm voting affirmative in this round. Please actually don't do that. Just it's going to give you a little privacy. The kids are not supposed to confront their judge or anything, but this will protect you a little bit that you're just not bringing it up. But also there's a lot of coaches, and I'm one of them myself, that doesn't like my debaters to know their wins or loss records through the course of the tournament. I think it's more important that they focus on the round they're in and the one in front of them rather than the one that just ended. So please just don't reveal to your players or to the kids in your round what your decision was. And lastly, please don't offer any lengthy oral feedback on them. Debate is a timed activity, like I've said a couple of times now, and our next round has to start. The tournament has to go on. You can, if you got a couple of minutes and you want to say, boy, I sure did love that piece of evidence, or you guys are really great speakers, whatever, that is not inappropriate, but lengthy feedback, sometimes judges want to sit there for 20 minutes to talk about it. And honestly, we just don't have the time for that. So write yourself a good ballot. Once the round is over, once the speeches have concluded, you're going to complete your ballot, finish up any notes that you want to make, and you're going to need to decide who wins. Now, in my experience, this is one of the most stressful things for debate judges. And I don't have a good answer for you other than that we need a decision and that we are asking you to make some judgment. A lot of times you're going to, watch this round and you're like, man, all four of these kids are really great and I don't actually know who won. Well, find some criteria on how it wins, because a team has to win. There are no ties in high school debate. And honestly, I'm going to say you need to be empowered on this. This is your role as the judge, and you are always right. There's kind of this is bad theology, but there's a saying in debate that the judge is God because he or she gets to determine the winners and losers and who lives and dies. I mean, please don't kill a kid, but the judge is always right. Your decision is final. It is not subject to appeal. Once you sign that ballot and put your, name on it and you say affirmative or negative, it is done and there is no going back on it. So your decision is final. It is not subject to appeal. The kids can complain all they want. They will complain to me and I will hear them out and I will say, oh, and that's kind of about all I could do, because that's your job as a judge. Now, I actually think that the hardest job in judging is ranking the competitors. You do need to decide which is the best speaker in the round, the second best speaker. You got to rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is the best. 4 is not the best. And sometimes it's actually really hard to make meaningful distinctions between who's the number 1 and the number 2 in the round, or who's the 3 and the 4, or the 2 and the 3, or whatever. Quite often you're going to come out and you say, man, that was good. All these kids were great, or all those kids were kind of clunkers. Well, whatever it be, your round's going to, be different on each one. But you do need to rank them, and I'm sorry that there's not much sympathy besides that. It's just the way our game works, and it's how points happen. And the rankings need to match the decision. This is the most complicated thing in scoring high school debate. So I'm going to give this in 3 sentences, and I'm going to say it really slowly. The winning team needs to have the better ranks, or at least tied ranks. So if the number 1 speaker and the number 2 speaker are on the same team, they need to win. Or the number 1 speaker or the number 3 speaker, they need to win because they would have 4 points instead of the 2 and 6 on the losing team. So the better score needs to be the winning team. It might be tied. You might have the 1 and the 4 on the same team, and you might have the 2 and the 3 on the same team. That happens. It actually happens really frequently. You might be tied. At that point, you can decide whatever you want, but the winning team has to have the better scores or equal scores. Now, I'm going to be looking for it. I'm going to be in the tabulation room, the records room, most of the day. I'm going to have, when you finish your round, you're going to give the ballots to some students. They're going to look it over too. We're going to try to catch this, but I'll say this is the number 1 reason why we have tournament problems. And it's actually simpler in Kansas than it is most other places in the country. You're going to, on your ballot, provide meaningful feedback of who wins and losses and why you decided the way you did. And you will turn in your ballot to your floor person. We'll have some St. James Academy kids in their high school uniforms. You can look around and say, oh, yeah, it's a St. James kid. I can give my completed ballot to them. And he or she will take your ballot. They will look over it once and then go turn it in for you. Once you've given it to them, you have turned it in. You can head back to the judges table for the next round. If you are judging the next round, if you only had the 1 round, then you can go out to glorify the Lord, and we'll see you again. But hey, I want to talk for a second about what feedback should look like on a ballot. And if I am in this packet here, I'm actually kind of jump ahead to one of the last pages, and it's how a ballot should be filled out. So a decision should be made on the merits of the okay. you're voting whether or not you are affirming the resolution or negating the resolution based on the debates you saw. Maybe you have a passionate opinion about NATO activity, and if you do, that's awesome. You got to set that aside and judge what just happened in your round. So please don't make your decision based on the merits of the resolution. You should be basing your decision based on the merits of the round. Please don't also consider the reputation of the teams or the schools or the coaches. If you look at somebody and like, oh, they're from Directional High School and I hate Directional High School, please leave that aside. Hey, Directional High School is hateable, right? I shouldn't say that, but you set aside your opinions of the school and just evaluate what happened in the round. Any preconceived notions of best or worst arguments, like, boy, I sure love it when people try to bring in, morality, or when people try to bring in nuclear war or whatever it would be. Leave that aside. Just judge the round that you saw, not the one that you wished you saw. Or any personal preferences of debating styles, something like that, that makes it unfair for a team. Okay, some helpful feedback, some nice things to write on a ballot. Whenever my wife judges for me, she does not have a speech or debate background, and she's always like, what do you write on ballots? So with Mrs. Wahlberg in mind, I say this out. What's some helpful feedback? So feedback about how a team laid out their arguments, how their organization went, the logic that they used to make their arguments, the validity of their claims. Boy, I think that was a really compelling thing to say, and I like the way that you connected the dots on that. Explanations of complex ideas, or ways that the arguments were refuted in the round. It's also totally acceptable to talk about presentation. You had really good eye contact, or boy, you spent your whole time reading to a computer screen, or you had great enunciation and you projected well, or you turned into mush mouth and there was no clarity and I couldn't find anything, or you spoke too fast, which is really common in high school debate. You think I'm speaking fast right now, boy, you should see some upper level high school debaters. Or the volume, boy, I just couldn't hear you at all. Or you spoke very clearly. The presentation is great feedback. Now, I'm going to say that there is like a yellow light here, some caution feedback that is worth talking about. And this is feedback that could be taken the wrong way. This is a game that is built around adolescence. And even though high school debaters, usually are pretty good thinkers, or at least that's what we hope to coach them into, they have adolescent brains, and sometimes they take things personally that you don't mean to be personally. So things that seem, boy, you sure seemed aggressive or assertive in the round. I think that's actually could be a fair comment, but you got to be careful with it, because sometimes this sounds like, boy, you sure sounded bitchy, and that's kids are not going to take that very well. You know how it is. We don't want to hurt feelings. That's not really our goal in debate. So you want to give good feedback. Or pitch of voice. People with squealy voices, that's just the way the Lord made them. Please don't try to get them to change their voice on there. And I'm going to say humor. I think of myself as a funny person. I like to use humor in context. Humor on debate ballots actually just doesn't translate very well. And things that I think are funny, I've gone back and seen later. It's like, boy, that was kind of a jerk thing for me to say. I don't think any of you are jerks. I don't know most of you, but I know the kids that recruited you, and they don't seem like the people that would hang around jerks. Oh, there was a person in this call named Bethany. I'm sorry, Bethany. I just called you out on that earlier in the round. Oh, my bad. Bethany was a hypothetical name. It's unrelated to you. Sorry. So in a humor, that something like that is going to get misconstrued, something like that. And sometimes feedback seems very personal to a kid, even if you don't mean it to be personal. Adolescents just feel things more intensely than adults do. So things that you don't intend to be offensive are sometimes going to be offensive. And I also want to point out a couple of things that are actually just sort of unhelpful feedback. And I would prefer if you didn't mention this on the debate ballot at all. Beginning with comments on appearances or resources. Debaters come in, every kid comes into the game with whatever they've got. So comments about like, boy, I loved your dress, or why are you wearing sneakers, or something like that. That's just going to be outside of what we want to see on our ballots. Some people, that is the dress that they've got, or those are the shoes that they've got. Clothing that appears to be revealing, or doesn't seem professional enough, or seems like overdone, or makeup that's too much, or hairstyles that are kind of wild. Please just don't mention it on the ballot. Let that be. If you have something that's a serious concern that you think, my goodness, this was inappropriate, You come and tell me, I will discuss it with their coach and let like the people that know the kids deal that. Just, keep yourself out of the fracas on that. You're welcome to talk to me. I'm not going to tell you no, but let me deal with the other coach. Or if you just love their outfit, actually don't mention that either, because the other team's going to say like, well, they didn't vote for me because he sure loved that kid's tie. Just don't mention appearance. Also, comments outside of the student's control. If it's something that like the person clearly has a stutter, or their partner isn't going to hold them up, or so whatever it is, like if we're asking 14-year-old kids to play this game, they can't fix all of their problems yet. They're still learning how to do it. So problems they can't fix, just it's not helpful feedback. Or one that I'll see, and honestly, I've been guilty of this myself, is the arguments that didn't take place in the round, but I wish did. Oh, you should have argued so-and-so. Leave that off the ballot. Please give comments to the round that happened, not the one that you wished happened. Okay, I'm kind of racing the clock on this because our Zoom account has a timer on it, so I'm going as fast as I can on it. If this is way too fast, I am recording it. I'll put this up on YouTube and I'll send out a link to the same emails that I sent out before. Okay, so what happens in a debate round? And if I'm on the page, if I'm in the packet, I'm back on, I think it was page 3 that has the order of the debate, the little colored sequence up there. What happens in a debate? Teams will argue for and against a particular resolution. Oh, whoops, I left the wrong resolution up here. That was last year's about water resources. Ours is about NATO cooperation. It's the one that's in your packet. I'll have a corrected slide on the next screen. Strictly speaking, a judge only votes on the resolution. Do we affirm this sentence or negate this sentence? And you're going to make that decision based on the round that plays out for there. Wins and losses are entirely based on how the teams convinced you one way or another. It's their job to convince you. You are the audience. You are the judge. They are speaking to you. Even if there's 1,000 people in the room, and there won't be, there's going to be like 5. But if there's 1,000 people in the room, they are speaking to one person when they speak to the judge, and that is you. So wins or losses are based on how well the team convinced you about the resolution. Decision should be based on the merits of the round and the arguments presented. So again, whatever happened, that's what you're judging, and you should consider what was the evidence presented, how well did they make their arguments, how well did they deliver and speak to you, their clarity of speaking, but also clarity of thought and the analysis they used. There's a couple of kinds of speeches. There's a constructive speech where a team begins to construct their arguments as to why they think you should think of a certain way. There are cross-examination speeches where they will speak to each other, like the debaters will ask questions of each other, clarification or sometimes argument setup questions. Cross-ex could kind of go anywhere. And then eventually you get into rebuttal questions, rebuttal speeches, where they begin to answer the arguments that have already been presented. A rebuttal speech doesn't present new arguments, at least ideally. We do have people learning the game here, so sometimes it's going to happen. But they respond to arguments that are already made to put the final pieces on those arguments. So that's what happens in debate. They are dueling speeches. They go affirmative, negative, affirmative, negative. And there's actually this moment in the middle of the speech where the negative team gets 2 speeches back to back. Then it goes negative, affirmative, negative, affirmative. So the affirmative gets the first and last speech. The negative team gets the 2 middle speeches. And that's kind of the method of debate. Students will keep their own time limits. They will keep their own, they'll run their own, stopwatches or cell phone timers to time themselves. They will actually time each other. So when one kid is speaking, the other team is going to set up like a mirror timer and go catch them, to do it. Just make sure everybody's keeping each other honest. They will keep their own preparation time. They get a few minutes, a total of 8. Each team gets a total of 8 minutes to go prepare for the next speeches. And they'll keep track of all of that. Please do not keep track of it. The kids will keep each other honest. So we don't have this water topic. We do have a topic for debate, which is about NATO this year. So it's the topic for debate this year is resolved. The United States federal government should substantially increase its security cooperation with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in one or more of the following areas: artificial intelligence, biotechnology, or cybersecurity. The key words here is that the U.S. is going to cooperate with NATO, which is like the defense alliance that emerged after World War II, specifically on security cooperation. NATO is not about trade. It is not about, it's specifically security cooperation. And they've delimited it to some emerging technologies: AI, biotech, cybersecurity, kind of those 3 topic areas. Some limits will be placed on the teams. For instance, if you're judging a novice round, in the state of Kansas, and actually most of America uses, they call it the novice packet, where they give a few topic areas that novices are able to use and kind of preset some evidence requirements for them. And that's a way of kind of keeping some guardrails while you're learning the game. If you are judging in the junior varsity round and the JV round, there are no particular guardrails, and the round could go in any direction, but it'll be based around this question of NATO and security cooperation. That you are not expected to police these rules, by the way. If somebody comes up to you, if like the negative team comes up and says the affirmative team is running debating something that is outside of the topic area, you're not interrupting the debate. You just say, play the round that you've got. You could let me know. I will be around. You can let a St. James Academy know, say, hey, I need to talk to Mr. Wahlberg, and I'll come help adjudicate it. But you are not expected to police the rules. You are not a referee. You are a judge. You are to judge the round that happens in front of you. Okay. I want to talk for a second about some of the terms that you might hear. Debate is an old game. Like I said at the beginning, the modern version of debate emerged about 100 years ago, and it's developed some jargon over time. And a few of these things that you're going to be wanting to know about. So if we are in the packet, we're on the page that begins the stock issues. There are, depending on how you count it, between 3 and 6 stock issues. We generally say there's about 4 of them. They use the acronym THIS, THIS. Some of the clever debaters rearrange those letters in a different way, but we say this, THIS. It is a question of topicality. How well does the affirmative team stick to the resolution? There might be some times that the affirmative team is going to get fast and loose with the resolution, but the negative team might talk about topicality, which is how close they are to the resolution. You might hear debaters talk about harms or significance. Those two terms get used kind of interchangeably, and it's about how bad is the situation? How much do we actually need to change things? Or if we do change things, what are the unintended consequences that might come about from it? So those are harms. You might hear that term. You might also hear people use the term inherency. Inherency is about whether or not the affirmative is presenting a new topic, or if it's already currently being done by somebody else, currently being done in the status quo. And then lastly, you might hear people talk about solvency. Solvency is about how well the affirmative team thinks they can fix the problems, or how well the negative team thinks they might not fix the problem. So these are what's called the stock issues. They're kind of classic pieces of high school debate, or really all policy debate. And you might hear them. Now, we have a novice and a JV tournament, so these are people that are also learning these terms, and maybe you won't hear it, but high likelihood you're going to hear something like this, particularly if you judge multiple rounds. I want to introduce a couple of pieces of debate terminology. Debaters have developed a lingo that's kind of unique to their game, and some of these terms are used in the wider discourse of just being an American and paying attention to current events, and sometimes they are not. The first one that you might hear is called prima facie, and I spelled that wrong. It's not fascia like a fascia board on your house. That should be in E. Golly, I made 2 mistakes on this. That's crazy. I haven't made 2 mistakes all year. Prima facie is the idea that an affirmative needs to meet all of the stock issues. If the affirmative team needs to present a tight case that there should be some reason to change, the status quo is not doing something about it, and that they think they can improve it with solvency. If the negative team doesn't challenge a particular issue, and a negative doesn't necessarily challenge all 4 stock issues, they find something that they think is most relevant in the round, and they don't talk about things that aren't relevant in the round. Topics unchallenged by the negative team, you can consider them conceded. The affirmative is fine on this one. Negative arguments unchallenged by an affirmative are assumed to be, you'll hear the term drop. They're assumed to be conceded by the negative, and actually that's a problem for the affirmative. That means if the affirmative team doesn't significantly answer anything presented by the negative team, then the affirmative has not presented a prima facie case. There's some reason why it doesn't work or shouldn't be voted. So we would say that an affirmative team needs to win all 4 stock issues, or an affirmative team needs to win every argument in a round. A negative team only needs to win 1 argument. Now, this is a little bit of debate theory, and it is more important the more you judge rounds. You're welcome to judge the round in front of you. And like I said, we have people that are learning this game, so there's might be a variety of interpretations as it plays out. Next term you might hear is called status quo. It basically means what is happening in the world right now, if we change nothing, we live in the status quo. The negative team has the power of presumption, which says that, like, if you do nothing, the future will look like now. The status quo will carry on if you never vote affirmative. Some other terms that you might hear are fiat. I learned fiat in a religious sense when our lady said, "Be it done to me according to thy word," in the Annunciation. But fiat is a Latin word. It just means make it so, or it, have it done. It basically means that the affirmative team, if you sign that ballot and vote affirmative, then through the magic of debate, the policy goes into action. The negative team can't say, like, boy, the Democrats are going to hate this plan, or boy, the Republicans are going to hate this plan. Politics won't, you actually override politics. You have the power of fiat as a judge. You might hear the term disadvantage. Disadvantage is a type of negative argument that says if you vote affirmative, there are these consequences that are not good that are going to happen. Ideally, a disadvantage should, clearly link to the plan. They might be generic disads. Those have been more and more lately, where the negative team is going to run more or less the same argument in every round. Yeah, that's considered legal to do so. Another term that you might hear, at this point in the season, particularly among novices, you are not likely to hear a counter plan. If you're judging in a JV round, there's more of a possibility. It's counter plans this early in the season, probably not common. It might happen. It's allowed. Where the negative team proposes their own policy to achieve the same advantages that the affirmative team wants to lay out, but in a way that isn't resolutional, because remember, you are voting on the resolution. That might be something that you'll see up there. And there's a style of debate called critical debate, and I know it's spelled with a K. It came to high school debate out of German philosophy, so it's the German spelling on it, which is not actually about public policy, at least directly. Maybe indirectly it is, but it's about a philosophical social criticism. Instead, the way I like to explain this is I am a high school history teacher, and about a year and a half ago, the term critical race theory blew up everywhere and made, history teachers suddenly like aware of this thing that most of us didn't know anything about. I actually learned about critical race theory as a high school debater in the 1990s, but it's an idea of like social criticism. We are not likely to see these at our tournament. They are legal positions to carry, and if you are a judge and you might hear it, and you're welcome to vote for or against a critical argument. It is considered a legal argument in high school debate. We're not likely to actually hear that in a round. The last thing I want to say is actually how we began this topic, and that was, we've been on this call now for 41 minutes. Boy, the Zoom gods are going to shut us down here in a moment. And I'm talking really fast. I might have just like ramped up your anxiety like crazy. I hope I haven't, but that might be, I talk really fast and sometimes that makes people nervous. I want you to relax and tell yourself, you're probably going to be fine. The debate rounds are probably going to be fine. Debaters are used to meeting people that know this game well, but also it's their first moment in high school debate. Trust me, the longer you spend in this game, you see it, and you are a valid judge. You might actually be the most important kind of a judge, because debate is a communication activity, and we don't want people to get caught up in the lingo of the inside baseball of how debate works. We want to be able to talk to the people they meet. So a lay judge, which most of you don't have debate experience, is actually the most important kind of judge, and I'm so excited that you're a part of our tournament. Our tournament is a novice and a JV tournament. They're learning the game just like you're learning the game. Allow yourself to learn together with them. And remember, what actually is a good debate judge is not a person that knows all of the lingos and details. It's a person that's willing to be fair-minded, a person that's willing to stay honest through the round, a person that's willing to set aside their opinions and judge the round that actually played out in front of them, because the debaters are there to reach you. So anyway, that's kind of want to wrap up. There was one or two questions in the chat. If you want to put some others in there, I will address it out right now. One of the questions that came up is, what is judge attire? Judge attire is vacation casual. You are welcome to come in shorts and a t-shirt. You're welcome to come in a coat and tie. There is no particular judge dress code, and you will see everything. You will see people that, some of these Friday night tournaments, it seems like they walked out of their 8th floor office and then walked right into the round. So they're in a suit and tie. Sometimes you see people that they are in flip-flops and shorts, and it's like, dude, it's December, but whatever. So judge attire is absolutely anything that you want. It's vacation casual up through business formal. There was another question here about check-ins. So just as a reminder on that, I would like you to check into the judges table 15 minutes before round starts. Our check-in table is right inside the school. So when you drive up to St. James Academy, park anywhere in the parking lot. You're going to come in the main doors by the circle drive. There will be a table or two set up right there. It'll have check-in sign above it or on it or around it somewhere. And you'll see a couple of our St. James debaters. That's where you check in. You'll be given a ballot and you'll head off to your room. We'd like you to your room a couple of minutes before the round is scheduled. So they can start on time. The debaters are not allowed to go in. We ask them not to go in. They're adolescents. Sometimes they will go in on their own, but we ask them not to go in until the judge gets there. So that's kind of what our time expectations are. We'd like to see you 15 minutes before the round picking up your ballots. Not everybody's going to be used every round. We have a handful of people that are on standby. If you are on standby, you are still helping our tournament. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it just feels like you are eating donuts in the hospitality round, but you are absolutely helping us by being on standby. Every tournament needs standby judges. We need it because there's going to be some people that their schedule, their life has changed. We deal with people with complicated lives. Okay. That said, I think Zoom's about to shut off. I can hang back if you have any questions that you want to put up there. I'm going to go ahead and, I'll stop. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.